Okay, so welcome to the fourth episode of Data Discussions with me, Kate McDermott, and two very special guests from my longest standing client, Realise Unlimited, part of the Unlimited Group. Ian Bobbett and Stephen Welch are the founders of this highly successful analytics and data science consultancy and have worked with huge brands such as Sky, Aviva and Argos, as well as cultural organisations such as the British Library and the National Archives, helping them to unlock value and profit from data. Today, we will be showcasing some of the work Steve and Ian have delivered over lockdown and beyond, delving into how the scope of work has changed due to COVID and what they think the future of analytics for customer-led businesses will look like. So welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, really keen just to kick off the discussion with possibly some examples around projects or clients that you've been engaged with over the last 6 to 9 months. That demonstrate, I suppose, how the questions have changed, you know, the scope of work has changed within the world of analytics and data science. And yeah, if you've got any interesting examples of businesses that have found, you know, they've had particular growth or particular success off the back of COVID, or had really unusual challenges come up where data's been able to, you know, help solve those problems, it'd be really interesting if you guys could start to talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Do you want me to start, Ian?
You go for it. You do one, I'll do one.
Good plan.
Well, I suppose an obvious example, and this will resonate with a lot of people because, you know, let's face it, this isn't just about, you know, businesses. This has affected all of us personally, and our everyday lives have obviously fundamentally changed over the past how many months it is now, 8-9 months. And you know, personally, you know, you're not nipping out to the shops quite as much because, you know, half the time they're closed. So you know, the retailers that we've worked with obviously have had to pivot their strategy to really push digital. So for example, Fortnum & Mason is one who probably traditionally it's been quite a high-end experience brand, where it's very much about, you know, going into the store, feeling the ambiance, you know, browsing, feeling special. And the question there has been, how do you capture that through, you know, a more online medium? Which has been very, very interesting, and similarly, you know, pushing a type of consumer who maybe are less online savvy, let's say, to a very, very different channel, and giving them that same feeling of being special and unique, and quite happy to pay maybe that slightly extra, you know, book to get the product, has been particularly interesting. And one of the challenges they faced, you know, they've done very well, you know, in terms of migrating their consumer base online, which is good, because obviously, you know, it's been a very challenging time for retailers. But what they're seeing is, you know, acquisition rates are through the roof. Great. But straight away, the question that's then posed is, what do we do with that new audience? Because as soon as, you know, hopefully, you know, we come out of COVID and lockdown, is that audience just going to revert back to how they were behaving before? So whichever brand or channel you've been able to acquire them from, how do you create that stickiness? Because actually the catalyst for them changing their behavior was COVID, and you've got no control over that. So you've got a very fixed time. Your you know, early life and welcome programs actually probably need to shift, or do need to shift, to, you know, educate around the brand and the point of difference a lot quicker and with a slightly different focus, to try and encourage that second spend and generate, I suppose, brand affinity before they have the opportunity to go back to their previous brand. And that's quite a challenge to do. And what we've been working on is trying to look at those welcome programs, changing the messaging, changing the timing, and trying to understand through, working with our partner company Walnut, who do market research, understand the reasons for why the consumer has switched brand, because it's not necessarily just I can't access the physical store. It's things like the convenience of delivery. I know, for example, brands like Harrods, their delivery commitments, because of COVID, I think previously they were promising a next day delivery, whereas now I think it's within the next 14 days. So things like that might change, drive customers to change brand, and he's trying to understand that and then leverage that within the comms.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, just as a consumer myself, you're absolutely right. I am purely driven by speed of delivery a lot of the time, but as you say, it's a convenience thing for me with a little one at home, and working and things like that. It's just, how can I make life as easy as possible? And then when I do go out to the shops, it's only, once a week, something like that. But I've actually changed supermarkets because I've decided to treat myself and kind of go up the value chain, because if I'm only going to go out once a week, and if I'm going to live this life, I'm at home, I've decided to actually start shopping in a higher end supermarket. So it's I mean, God, there's just so many variables, aren't there?
It's really interesting, and that treat yourself aspect is precisely one of the things that Fortnum's has been pushing, because let's face it, in lockdown, all of those things that we used to getting pleasure from, we're probably not experiencing at the moment. Going out for meals, going to the cinema, evening classes, whatever it is. So all of a sudden, you're having to fundamentally change those little, pleasure points, as it were.
Yeah.
I've subscribed to a wine club. Just never done it before. But just something different that of an evening we can talk about and go, oh, different bottle of wine, let's taste this. So yeah, he's trying to tap into that as a brand.
Do you know, though, there's really interesting flip sides there. So I do a lot of work with Warner Leisure Hotels. So hospitality, travel's been hit, desperate, desperately hard. It's been pretty awful, and it's been pretty awful for us as well to see them go through these challenges. Not Warner, they've done pretty well, to be fair to them, and they've been very innovative. But you're emotionally engaged with your clients, all right? And so watching them having to face a new reality and watching them react to it has been at times really tough. But it's actually been really fascinating to see how well they've responded to it. Like, hugely impressed. They're a UK-based hotel chain, and the lens that they've kind of taken is, well, look, the world's changed, nothing we can do about it. What are our future opportunities? And they've been really, really super focused on a couple of things, making that future guest experience when people do come back to the hotels a lot better. Massive strides forward there, and a lot slicker in terms of how guests can now interact with them as a business. So really impressed with those changes. A lot of focus on who their future customer is going to be. So what's happened, a lot has happened in the travel industry, right? So people are not going on cruises at the moment very much. That's seen as not great, particularly for the demographic that traditionally cruises. And naturally Warner, a UK-based hotel chain, has been looking at that and saying, well, are there opportunities for our future business to say, look, if something happens, you're a 90-minute drive from home, you're not stuck in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
So there's a different optic that they can kind of apply to that. And they've also acknowledged that their future guests may look really, really different to their current guests. So loads of focus on digitization, making, as I said, that not only have they done a lot to make the experience in terms of being servicing staff and room cleaning and all that a lot better. What they've also done is they've enabled a much slicker digital journey. So even in times where you kind of look at the travel industry and go, gosh, it's pretty tough. They've been incredibly forward-looking and incredibly innovative, actually, to kind of say, well, you know, this is it. This is how we think we can move forwards. And you know, and data and analytics obviously plays a huge part in that, because there's been a whole transition in the missions that people are going to the hotels for. There's been you know, a complete change in the profile, that mix of, you know, a group of highly loyal customers. Well, they've pulled right back, and they've got a whole new acquisition tranche, which is a completely different demographic that they've been able to pivot, they've been able to react to really quickly, and keep that, you know, what they're good at is providing a service in a hotel, right? And, you know, and they've absolutely excelled at that. You know, they've been at capacity all through the summer, through just, you know, accepting that change and rolling within a really agile way. And you know, that's really impressive in the circumstances.
What do you think, just sorry, Steve, just really quickly on that, what do you think how do you differentiate then a business that is able to do that? Where does that come from? Is it yeah, you know, versus other companies that they just haven't managed to do that. They haven't been agile. They haven't adapted.
I think it comes predominantly from the leadership team. I think you have to acknowledge that. You know, they very quickly looked at how they work and adapted very fast. I've seen that in other companies. Some who we work with, some who we don't. You know, those that seem to have adjusted are in a much better place. And I do think it's that leadership ability to focus on the right things. I think it's not that restrictive, oh, it's a disaster, what are we going to do? It's very much, okay, what are the opportunities? Let's go about this in a calm, structured manner. You know, let's get our operations prioritized and sorted out. Once our operations are sorted out, you know, during lockdowns and all that kind of thing, well, what does the future look like? How do we turn this around? And you know, there's been a strong message from that leadership team of, you know, we're in this together. Let's make this work, and it's been really impressive, actually. Really.
I was speaking to a client last night, and I don't think I should name them, given what I'm about to say, but it was really interesting, because what they were saying was, with a lot of maybe more traditional brands and traditional sectors, and I'm sure this will resonate with you as well, Kate. Sometimes, you know, data and insight struggles to establish itself as really informing strategy. And you know, we've all come across conversations where, and you know, we find this as well as an agency, even more so now. You know, I've worked in this sector for 30 years. I know what works and what doesn't work. You guys can't help. But actually, what we're seeing, and I know that's very old school, and you know, things have changed, fortunately, quite a lot. But actually, COVID has asked questions of leadership teams that actually, at times, they can't fall back onto some of that experience, because all of their foundations around understanding behaviours and the consumer base and what works and what doesn't work is up in the air. So what does that mean? It's actually accelerated the involvement and the dependency and the integration of insight teams into that strategic decision making, which is great.
I was just going to say that earlier, actually, after you were talking again through the hotel group, Ian, it sounds like, and I'm assuming that COVID has forced a lot of businesses to, you know, move forward 5 years, 10 years from, you know, it's forced businesses to make the changes, as you say, really accept data as the driving force behind decision making, because they've had to rely on hard fact and information to in some cases completely change their entire business strategy. And it's a really good thing. I mean, certainly from our perspective, you know, the skill areas that have been consistently in demand for the last 9 months are across digital and data. And, you know, I was very pleased to hear that you guys have been, you know, busy as well. And I'm hearing the same thing from other consultancies and agencies. They're swamped with work, you know, and sometimes it's from clients that, you know, surprising clients in travel and leisure. Particularly at the beginning of lockdown, I was speaking to a client who was working with EasyJet, and because EasyJet had furloughed a lot of their staff, they were really leaning on their retained agency partners to almost crisis manage them through lockdown. And the questions were, you know, what do we do now? How do we get through this? what does our customer look like now, and what will they look like in the future? And it's so difficult, obviously, to forecast and predict anything at the moment, but this is where data's coming into its own, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think one thing I've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed the same, Steve, with a lot of my clients, is they're much more willing to innovate with data. They're much more willing to press forward with perhaps, ideas and solutions that are probably more at the leading edge rather than perhaps your more traditional stuff. So it's accelerated that need for change, and it's also accelerated that need for understanding. And one of the really fascinating trends that I love personally is very much around understanding not only the behaviour of your customers, but also the emotion, why they make decisions. How do I integrate my research with my data science, with my business knowledge? How do I get all of that together to tell a much richer and much deeper story, so that businesses are informed in an incredibly fluid environment, are better informed to make really, really critical decisions. And it's not decisions now about what campaign am I going to send out next week, or, what's my pricing of certain products. It's what are we doing to survive? What are we doing to capitalize on the situations? What are our opportunities? How are our customers feeling about our brands? How do we leverage that? And bringing those extra data sources, doing, I suppose, things that probably a lot of companies wouldn't have thought of doing 12 months ago. They're in a position where they've got to innovate, and for all the horrible kind of impacts that this has had, and the terrible impacts on people's mental health, the economy, all of those kind of things. There are in our particular industry some silver linings. People are being much more creative, much more innovative, much more open to change. And I think I really see that as a trend, and it's the type of work we do. It's really, it's come on. We're doing some work with clients that's no one else is doing, and that's exciting. And clients are engaging.
I mean, fundamentally, I suppose, obviously, a lot of the areas that we work in tend to be like supporting marketing functions. So, the basic premise of, talking about the right thing to the right person at the right time, basic CRM, it remains unchanged. The challenge is it's a different person talking about a different thing at a different time now. And, as Ian says, linking to that emotional side is probably even more key, because behaviours are fundamentally changing and have changed. So doing things like using psychographic profiling and ocean data through things like IBM Watson, where you can start to score your base and profile your customer base to understand, for example, how risk averse they are. So actually, then your marketing message maybe shifts from, a more traditional, price message or convenience message to maybe for, a risk averse sector, it's, we are COVID safe. These are all the things we've put into place. Whereas obviously for a very, very different segment who aren't risk averse and they're fine, it's still maybe price, convenience, or whatever the more traditional hooks were. So it's leveraging things like that to pivot quickly, because one of the key things here is that agility and speed and willingness to change and adapt that's core to driving success.
Yeah, and I've seen the same kind of trends in talking to other people that have kind of analytical consultancies or agencies that deal in data, and there's been increased demand around, NLP, sentiment analysis, that kind of stuff, which is, again, just absolutely fascinating. But equally, again, just going back to what you were saying as well, Ian, clients just working with marketing or customer analytics agencies or marketing agencies, but just almost the relationship has changed quite dramatically. So you're actually servicing just broader business problems and questions rather than, as you say, just marketing related. And so hopefully for the clients that I work with, the step change that I think a lot of companies have wanted to make, a lot of agencies have wanted to make, going from traditional customer and marketing analytics to more advanced data science, working on broader business questions, not just focusing on, you know, targeted marketing is starting to happen, and we'll see more of that. And I know that the management consultancies have been hit quite hard. Surprisingly, there's been a bit of a downturn there in terms of work stream, but maybe this is where the work is going to end up, you know, in this kind of broader business consultancy is going to come from specialists like you, and again, established marketing agencies that have got those data functions.
It's interesting. We've always done quite a lot of business modeling, you know, trying to help our clients plan, you know, what their future marketing strategy is, what their future loyalty strategy is. But more and more we're doing scenario planning about what the future customer strategy is. So it's kind of taken that step up from campaigns, loyalty to customer. What does the future customer look like? How are we then, you know, how are we going to get these different scenarios? How do we prioritize them? What do we need to do with all of these different scenarios? Because, and it's incredibly fluid. And I was chatting with a client just this morning, and, you know, the news of a vaccine in the last couple of days, whole new set of scenarios, you know, we'll now be putting in place, you know, in the next couple of days, just to allow them to understand what's going to happen to their customer base who are coming to their sites.
Wow.
Is that going to change? You know, and you know, discussions, look, you know, we're getting 40 million vaccines, that's 20 million people can be vaccinated. The priority will be certain age demographics and certain, you know, job roles. So it's not going to be the population. Well, what does that mean? And so, you know, and, you know, 2 weeks earlier, we had a lockdown happen. So, you know, it's an incredibly fluid environment. And, you know, the smart businesses are really keen on being informed. And, you know, there are some sectors, and there's, you know, I think the beauty sector in particular is a fascinating and worrying sector, because, you know, you look at a lot of the big brands, a lot of their sales, particularly the higher end brands, have been through your department stores. Now, department stores have been suffering for a long time. And, you know, it's a difficult time for department stores, and therefore a difficult time for a lot of the brands and concessions that sit within those department stores, and you know, not allowing people to go into those stores has big downstream impacts, and the impacts, you know, won't be felt now. They'll be felt in 12, 24, 36 months as you know, that industry change. And beauty is really still quite hard to sell online, you know.
Yeah, somebody said to me the other day that the marketplaces in particular, I know a lot of them are based out of Europe, but they're doing particularly well. And again, I've got to admit, as a consumer myself, and when I've been shopping for beauty products recently, I've been looking at second hand. I've been going on the marketplaces. I'm certainly not going to, you know, Debenhams or even, you know, John Lewis website or the House of Fraser, where I may have gone in again for the experience. So you know, even Boots, you know, it's all, my habit now is the first port of call is online, and you know, and online was a big draw for me in the first place anyway, from a convenience perspective. But, and another point I was going to make earlier, actually, I think when you're spending so much time online as a consumer, I'm constantly evaluating my experiences, and if the site's too clunky, or it doesn't, you know, it's not quick enough, my loyalty's gone. I'm going to find something else that's quicker and easier and more convenient. And so, yeah, there's a constant evaluation, I think, of experience going on when people are probably spending, I'm sure, way more time online than they did in various different guises. But yeah, it's the high street is another fascinating topic of conversation. I'm not sure we've got actually time to go too much into that, but because anyway, but yeah, maybe time for another, maybe we'll do a second interview and go on to that again in a few weeks.
The bounce back would be fascinating.
Yeah.
It'd be really interesting to see how long it lasts. It'd be really interesting to see, you know, which brands really, really push experience, because the experience is what we've all been missing, right?
Yeah.
It's not the buying of products, it's the experience of buying the products. And you know, some online brands have done a really great job of improving that. Some not so much. You know, Amazon is a classic example of something that's a completely different model. It's all about convenience rather than necessarily experience, although obviously that's part of the experience, but that's very convenience focused. You wouldn't look at Amazon and go, what a beautiful website.
Yeah.
You would look at it and go, wow, what an all-round offering. Is absolutely incredible.
Yeah. We'll touch on it briefly. Steve, you look like you're about to say something. Go on.
Well, just I suppose bringing a couple of points together. I mean, you were saying, Kate, about analytics outside of pure marketing support. One of the challenges we're seeing, and it's linked to a couple of things that have just been articulated, is sales forecasting. So we're working with the likes of PlayStation at the moment, an online gifting company called Wonderbly. I was chatting to the owner of an online jewelry company, and a lot of these companies are actually going through quite boom periods for various reasons, because people are going online and purchasing and so forth. And the challenge that they've got, I mean, there are a couple of challenges. One is, what on earth does the future look like? Not only is it changing, as Ian says, by the day, according to new announcements, but they're concerned. Maybe concern is a bit strong, but they just don't know. It's the sales they're getting now. Is it hold back from when people were locked down before, or now we're back in lockdown? Is it pull forwards, so actually sales will dip in the future? Or actually, because they are acquiring customers, is it that sales will continue to boom and grow? And then if you look at why you do sales forecasting, and the tire company in particular, it's all about supply chain. They have to import tires from Japan, and what our client was saying was our colleague was saying was the issue that they have is it takes a significant amount of time to import the tires. Now, if there's an announcement about lockdown, they can't suddenly phone up the supplier and say, please, can you turn around the ship that's bringing over the tires? But they don't have the warehousing or the storage capability over here. And obviously, if they're then not selling the tires because there's a lockdown, what do you do with the tires?
Yeah.
And it's causing them a real headache trying to manage that supply chain. And obviously, you don't want the opposite, where you under purchase and then you're losing sales because you haven't got the stock. It's a real challenge.
Yeah, there must be loads of really difficult supply chain issues. Actually, it's a really good point.
Well, you think, I mean, just to take that further, Steve, a lot of people are working from home at the moment. Are we going to be driving as much? Is there going to be a long-term downturn in demand for tyres? Because we're not doing the miles.
Yeah.
And this is kind of back to, I suppose, what I was talking about Warner Hotel. That one of the challenges that everyone's facing is the permanence of these changes, and when it's going to flip back, and how much it's going to flip back, and what does that all look like? And I don't think there's a simple solution. So all you can be is as agile and organised as possible to make sure that you're on top of it, and that needs data, and that's the truth, and an indefatigable truth.
And I mean, I know we're doing a lot of market research with a lot of clients, trying to ask them in terms of how they're feeling about the future, and assuming we do become virus free at some point, then how quickly will they return back to the norm? And there's a lot of polarization. There's no straightforward answer there at all, and views shift literally by announcement. If we look now at how consumers are feeling versus when we first got locked down back in March, whenever it was, it's very different. Back then everyone thought it was a short-term thing, whereas now there's a recognition, until the vaccine is released and successful and so forth, we're here for a while.
So one last question then, I suppose, just to round off the chat relating to that. Have you had any feedback from clients about the long-term option of people working from home and reducing the need for office space? Has that come into conversations at all and played a part?
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously a lot of people are working from home, you know, and it's impacted us. You know, you can see we're both working from home, although, you know, to be honest, we've been a virtual company for a long time, so it was a fairly easy transition. But yeah, I think that demand for office space, you know, we know companies that literally have capacity for 2,000, but feel in a safe environment they can only take 200. So, you know, definitely that mix will change. You know, there's definitely a lot of fatigue around Microsoft Teams and that kind of thing. People are pretty sick of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, but it's been a godsend. You know, 10 years ago, this would have been a much more difficult situation. But yeah, you know, I think, you know, that working from home thing is here to stay. I think is the attitude that I see from most of my clients.
Yeah.
Although not exclusively, no one is going, yeah, we're going to get rid of our office space. But I think how they use the space will definitely change. And quite how that changes, I don't quite have a feel for. I don't know whether you've got any insights, Steve, on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the obvious thing, isn't it? Around, you know, downsizing that main office, only using it for key meetings. Maybe staff are asked to, you know, work in the office 2 days a week and then from home 3 days a week, and trying to balance that. You know, I think fundamentally everyone recognises that having everybody in the same place is the ideal scenario, but they can no longer substantiate the costs of large offices, because that incremental benefit isn't there anymore. It's still important. It's still important to get people together and feel part of the same team. And, you know, things like workshops and so forth are a lot easier face to face. But yeah, definitely there'll be a downsizing. We're seeing that right across our client base.
Yeah, no, I assumed that was what you were going to say, but it's just interesting, because I know you guys obviously work with a massive cross section, you know, different industry based clients, and the only kind of well, not the only, but the only sector clients that I've spoken to that are, when they can be, are all back in the office and kind of went straight back in as soon as lockdown lifted last time, was in the gaming sector, because the nature of the business requires everybody to be together all the time. So it's, yeah, there's going to be exceptions to the rules, but I think, yeah, from what I'm hearing, particularly from, again, big agencies, consultancies, it's going to be the norm, as you say, moving forward, that it's part-time and it's flexible. But it's that change alone in itself is just going to drive so many other changes, and again create, you know, opportunities, I think, as well. There may be some positives there as well. So but look, thank you both so much for your time today. I could have chatted for so much longer. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you for sharing your insights and examples there. So yeah, if any of you guys are interested in engaging with Steve or Ian, you can get in touch with me directly, or you can go to the Realise Unlimited website. But have nothing but good things to say about the consultancy, and it's only gone from strength to strength over the last, what, 15 years, is it?
I didn't know we were your longest serving client.
Yeah,
today.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, God.
Champagne's arriving soon, Stephen. Champagne's arriving soon.
No, it's been a pleasure. Yeah, 13, 14 years I think we've worked together, and it's been
a long time.
The agency grow and develop. But yeah, again, thank you so much, and I would love to do another chat, maybe in, you know, a few months' time, after we've perhaps gone through the festive period. It'll be fascinating again to see how particularly retailers are going to be adapting to that, what changes are going to come about. So maybe we'll schedule something for the new year. But yeah, thanks again, guys. Have a good rest of your week.
And you, Kate. Nice to speak to you as ever.
You too.